You stare at the problem, you read it again and again, but nothing comes. Your brain feels like it's hitting a wall. No matter how hard you try, the answer won't come. You start to wonder, is something wrong with you? But then, someone noticed. She didn't tell him to try harder. She asked him one question. What happens when you stop trying? He didn't have an answer. He'd never stopped. He thought stopping meant failing. She began to explain. Your brain, she said, has two completely different ways of thinking. The first is focused mode. This is when you concentrate deeply. All your mental energy aimed at one point like a laser beam. It's what you use when you practice problems, read carefully, or work through steps one by one. It's powerful, but it has limits. The second is diffuse mode. This is when your brain relaxes and quietly keeps working in the background, making connections you never could have forced. Most students only use one. They push in focused mode, never giving their brain the space it needs to actually solve things. That evening, walking home, he kept thinking about it. 2 modes. He'd only ever known one. He opened his textbook again. Same problem. He read it carefully. Focused mode engaged. He worked through what he could. He identified what he understood and noted exactly where he got stuck. Then he stopped. On purpose. For the first time, stopping didn't feel like giving up. It felt like a strategy. He let his mind wander. No screen, no music, just quiet. And somewhere deep inside, his brain kept working. In diffuse mode, your brain's default network activates. It roams freely, connecting ideas from different corners of your memory that focused thinking could never reach. 20 minutes later, something shifted. Not a lightning bolt, more like a quiet click. He picked up his pencil, and this time, the solution came, not by forcing it, by letting go first. This is what Barbara Oakley discovered, and what she taught the world through her research on learning. The brain needs both modes. Neither one alone is enough. Barbara Oakley was once terrible at math. She retrained her brain as an adult and became an engineering professor. She calls this the most important thing nobody teaches you about learning. Focused mode builds the pathways. Diffuse mode connects them. You need to move between both, like breathing in and breathing out. You can't stay in focused mode forever. Your brain fatigues. The connections stop forming, and that's when most students think they're just not smart enough. But it's not about intelligence. It's about not knowing how to switch. The most brilliant thinkers in history knew this instinctively. Einstein played violin to rest his mind. Darwin took long daily walks. Tesla would sit in silence for hours. They weren't wasting time. They were activating diffuse mode. He thought about every time he'd called himself stupid for not solving something immediately. Every time he'd felt guilty for taking a break. He had been grinding for hours every night, refusing to stop. And the harder he pushed, the less he retained. The same problem, written 10 times. No progress. Because you cannot force an insight. You can only create the conditions for one. So here is what the research actually tells us to do. Step 1. Engage focused mode first. Study deliberately. Work on the hard thing directly. Step 2. Stop before you burn out. Set a timer. 25 minutes of focus, then a genuine break. Not scrolling, not noise. Real rest. He started that afternoon. 25 minutes. Full focus. No phone, no music. Just the problem in front of him. When the timer rang, he stopped. Completely. He stood at the window and just watched the trees move. No agenda. No thinking about the work. And while he stood there, his brain's diffuse network quietly lit up, roaming, connecting, finding paths through the problem that focused thinking had blocked. He sat back down, and something that had been invisible before was suddenly clear. Not magic, neuroscience. This is what great teachers know. You don't just teach content, you teach students how their own brain works. And that changes everything. The next morning, he handed in his work. Not perfect, but further than he'd ever gotten before. And he knew exactly why. She didn't say, "Well done." She said, "You switched." And he knew exactly what she meant. He started building it into every study session. Focus. Rest. Focus. Rest. Not as a reward, as a method. Within a week, his sessions felt different, calmer, more productive. He was getting more done in less time, because his brain was actually absorbing what he studied. The answers weren't coming from trying harder. They were coming from thinking smarter. By understanding the tool he was actually working with, his own brain. Here is what Barbara Oakley's research confirmed. Learning is not about willpower. It is about working with the architecture of your brain, not against it. When you're stuck, that's not a sign to push harder. That's your brain telling you it needs to switch modes. Listen to it. Go for a walk. Sit under a tree. Take a shower. Do the dishes. These aren't distractions from learning. They might be the most important part of it. 2 modes, 1 brain. Focused mode builds the road. Diffuse mode finds where it leads. You need both. Every single study session. 3 weeks later, he faced a hard exam question. He read it, got stuck. And instead of panicking, he paused, breathed, let his mind go briefly soft. And then it came, quietly, clearly. The answer was already in there. He just needed to stop blocking it. He told her what happened in the exam. She smiled, not because he'd done well, but because he'd understood something that would help him for the rest of his life. The best lessons aren't about subjects. They're about how to think, how to learn, how to work with your mind instead of fighting it. You already have everything you need to learn deeply. You just needed to know how to use it. Focus. Then release. Think hard, then let go.